The Vexari arrival changed everything. Their ships appeared first as prismatic ribbons in the sky, unfurling like cosmic banners across Earth's atmosphere. Commander Isabella Romano stood at the United Earth Defense Force headquarters, watching the holographic displays track the alien vessel's descent. Her hand instinctively touched the worn wooden stock of the M1 Garand rifle, mounted on her office wall, a family heirloom that had seen action in conflicts spanning 3 centuries. The aliens' landing was perfectly choreographed, their ships touching down simultaneously in major cities across the globe. In New Delhi, their primary diplomatic vessel settled onto the massive landing pad constructed hastily for this historic moment. The Vexari emerged with an air of calculated grace, their iridescent exoskeletons reflecting the morning sun in dazzling patterns. Commander Romano led the military delegation at the welcome ceremony, standing alongside political leaders and scientific advisors. The Vexari High Commander, who introduced himself as Zixspor, towered over the human representatives. His translucent carapace pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that their universal translators interpreted as both words and emotional contexts. "We come seeking alliance," Zixspor announced, his internal lights shifting through shades of blue and green. "Your species has shown remarkable progress for your developmental stage. We offer guidance to help you join the greater galactic community." The first weeks of cultural and technological exchange seemed promising. The Vexari shared glimpses of their advanced technologies: gravity manipulation, quantum communication, and energy weapons that seemed to defy physics itself. But beneath their generous exterior lay an unmistakable condescension that grew more apparent with each passing day. The breaking point came during the Military Technology Exchange Summit. Commander Romano had brought her family's M1 Garand as part of a historical showcase of human weapons development. She had recently upgraded it with modern materials and targeting systems, making it more than just a relic. "And this," she explained, handling the rifle with practiced care, "represents over 300 years of human weapons engineering. While simple in principle, it demonstrates our ability to continuously improve and adapt our technology." Zixspor's carapace flickered with patterns that the translator struggled to interpret before settling on amusement. "How quaint," he finally said, mandibles clicking. "You still rely on chemical propellants and physical projectiles. We abandoned such primitive methods millennia ago." Other Vexari officials joined in, their bioluminescence pulsing with what could only be described as laughter. One of them, a weapons specialist named Krixnar, actually reached out to pat Romano on the shoulder in what felt like patronizing comfort. "Dear Commander," Krixnar said, "perhaps we should accelerate our technology sharing schedule. It pains us to see you clinging to such antiquated methods of defense." Romano felt her jaw tighten, but years of diplomatic training kept her voice steady. "With respect, this weapon has defended my people through countless conflicts. Its principles are sound, even if the technology seems basic by your standards." Principles. Zixspor's carapace flashed with sharp pulses of orange, amusement tinged with dismissal. "A projectile weapon is to our quantum disruptors what a stone axe is to your rifle. The galaxy has moved beyond such things." The meeting continued, but Romano barely heard the rest of the presentation. Her mind was already racing, analyzing the Vexari's apparent weaknesses, their overconfidence, their dismissal of time-tested technology, their assumption that newer always meant better. That evening, she made 2 calls. The first was to Dr. Caden Patel, Earth's leading quantum physicist, known for his unconventional approaches to weapons development. The second was to Zara Thompson, a ballistics expert who had revolutionized smart bullet technology. "Meet me at Facility Deep Mountain," she told them both, "and bring your wildest ideas. It's time to show our new friends that sometimes the old ways still have teeth." As she hung up, Romano's fingers traced the worn engraving on her rifle stock. "Ad astra per aspera," to the stars through hardship. Her great-grandmother had added those words after the Third World War. Now, facing humanity's greatest challenge, They seemed more relevant than ever. The Vexari's laughter still rang in her ears, but Romano smiled. They weren't the first to underestimate humanity's ability to adapt and overcome. And like those who had made that mistake before them, they would learn their error the hard way. In the depths of her secure facility, old blueprints would soon meet new theories, and the distinction between primitive and advanced would blur. The future of humanity might depend not on abandoning their past, but on finding ways to make it evolve. Facility Deep Mountain lived up to its name. Buried within the Rocky Mountains, its laboratories and testing ranges extended through miles of reinforced caverns. Commander Romano stood in the main research bay, watching Dr. Caden Patel manipulate quantum field projections around her M1 Garand. "The Vexari aren't entirely wrong," Patel said, his fingers dancing through holographic equations. "Their quantum weaponry is impressive, but they've completely abandoned the physical realm in favor of energy-based attacks. That's not advancement, it's tunnel vision." Zara Thompson nodded from her workstation, where she was analyzing the rifle's ballistic patterns. Her dark eyes reflected the glow of multiple screens displaying trajectory calculations. They'd forgotten that sometimes the simplest solution hits hardest. Their shields are optimized for energy weapons, not physical impacts. The first month of experiments yielded more failures than successes. They burned through 5 rifle barrels, melted 3 quantum containment fields, and nearly vaporized an entire testing range. But with each failure, they learned more about merging the old with the new. "The trick," Patel explained during one late-night session, "isn't to replace the mechanical systems with quantum ones. It's to enhance them, make them work together." He pointed to the latest modification, a quantum field generator no bigger than a watch battery, integrated into the rifle's chamber. Thompson's contribution was equally revolutionary. She had developed a new type of ammunition that contained a microscopic quantum core. When the firing pin strikes, she demonstrated with a hologram, it doesn't just ignite the propellant. It creates a cascade effect, forming a quantum tunnel through the barrel. The result was something entirely new. From the outside, the rifle still looked largely traditional, maintaining its classic wooden stock and familiar silhouette. But inside, it was a hybrid of technologies separated by centuries of development. Their first successful test came on a cold morning 3 months into the project. Romano stood at the firing line, the familiar weight of the rifle comfortable against her shoulder. The target was a replicated Vexari shield system, based on data they'd gathered during the technology exchanges. "Remember," Patel cautioned, "the quantum core will activate the moment you pull the trigger. The bullet will exist in multiple states simultaneously until impact." Romano took a deep breath and squeezed the trigger. The rifle's report was deeper than normal, accompanied by a subtle blue glow that rippled along the barrel. The bullet struck the shield and passed through it as if it wasn't there. "Perfect," Thompson exclaimed, reviewing the data. The quantum state confused the shield's sensors. It couldn't detect something that existed in multiple phases at once. But their success brought new challenges. The Vexari, initially content to merely observe Earth's military installations, began showing more interest in human weapons development. Their ships were spotted with increasing frequency near Deep Mountain. "They're getting suspicious," Romano noted during a secure briefing. "Their latest diplomatic messages have been probing for information about our research projects." The team worked faster, knowing their window of opportunity was closing. They refined the design, made it more stable, and began preparing documentation for mass production. Other nations' weapons developers were quietly brought into the project, adapting the principles to different firearms platforms. Then came the breakthrough that none of them had expected. During a late-night experiment, Thompson noticed something strange in the quantum readings. The bullet isn't just bypassing their shields, she realized. It's causing them to cascade fail. One hit could potentially disable their entire defense grid. The implications were staggering. A single shot from their primitive weapon could neutralize the Vexari's most advanced defensive systems. But Romano knew they needed more than just technical superiority. They needed a strategy. "We can't just show them what we've developed," she said during a planning session. "They need to learn respect for humanity's potential, not just fear our weapons." The opportunity came sooner than expected. The Vexari announced a grand demonstration of their military might, an exhibition of their latest weapons technology. All spacefaring races were invited to attend, with Earth granted a token presence as a developing civilization. Romano secured an invitation as Earth's military representative. The Vexari couldn't refuse without revealing their growing suspicions, though Zixvor's carapace flickered with barely concealed disdain when she requested permission to bring her historical artifact for comparison purposes. As she prepared for departure, Romano took one last look at the upgraded rifle. Its wood still bore the scars and marks of its long service, but now it harbored humanity's greatest technological achievement. Not because it was the most advanced weapon ever created, but because it proved that progress didn't always mean abandoning the past. "Let them laugh," she murmured, securing the rifle in its case. Sometimes the best lessons come from unexpected teachers. Deep in the quantum realm, particles danced in anticipation, waiting for the moment when old would meet new, and the galaxy would learn that humanity's greatest strength lay not in copying others' advances, but in finding their own path forward. The Vexari military exhibition took place on their fortress world, Helios Prime. As Commander Romano's shuttle descended through the amber clouds, she saw thousands of ships from dozens of civilizations crowding the orbital lanes. The sight was both awe-inspiring and intimidating, a calculated show of force masked as a diplomatic gathering. In the shuttle bay, she met the first Nairathi she'd ever seen. The alien was tall and graceful, with crystalline appendages and eyes that seemed to reflect entire galaxies. Unlike the Vexari's flashy bioluminescence, the Nairathi's body gleamed with subtle, shifting patterns that reminded Romano of northern lights. "I am Vizier Cole," the Nairathi said, its translator rendering the words in a melodious tone. "I couldn't help but notice your weapon case. Few species still carry physical armaments to these gatherings." Before Romano could respond, a group of Vexari officials approached, led by Krixnar. "Ah, Commander Romano, still clutching to your antique. How characteristic of your species." His carapace flickered with familiar mockery. "Perhaps you should observe how real weapons function in today's galaxy." Vizier Cole's crystalline form dimmed slightly. "The Vexari said similar things about our resonance weapons before they subjugated 3 of our colonies." The revelation sparked Romano's interest. After the Vexari departed, she and Vizier Cole found a quiet corner in the exhibition hall. The Nairathi explained how their civilization had developed weapons based on crystalline resonance, technology that the Vexari had dismissed as primitive before launching their protective occupation. "They believe that progress only moves in one direction," Vizier Cole said, crystal segments shifting in what Romano interpreted as frustration. "They cannot comprehend that different paths might lead to equal or greater results." Romano opened her rifle case, revealing the modified M1 Garand. "Perhaps," she suggested carefully, "we should compare notes. Our civilizations might have more in common than the Vexari suspect." Over the next few hours, Romano and Vizier Cole exchanged ideas. The Nairathi's resonance technology operated on principles surprisingly similar to the quantum mechanical hybrid they'd developed. Both systems exploited fundamental physical properties in ways the Vexari's pure energy weapons couldn't match. "Your quantum physical hybrid could be enhanced by our resonance crystals," Vizier Cole realized, excitement causing their form to shimmer. "And our weapons could benefit from your quantum tunneling techniques." Their discussion was interrupted by the exhibition's opening ceremony. Zixvar took center stage, his carapace blazing with prideful colors. "Today, we demonstrate the pinnacle of military science. Let all witness the futility of clinging to obsolete technologies." "They need to humiliate us publicly," Vizier Cole warned, "to prove once and for all the superiority of their approach." Romano smiled, checking the modified rifle one last time. "Then they should be careful what they wish for." Sometimes the best lessons come from unexpected teachers. As the final day of the exhibition approached, tension filled the massive complex. The Vexaries' confidence remained absolute, their carapaces glowing with anticipated triumph. They couldn't know that beneath their very noses, an alliance had formed that would shake the foundations of their technological supremacy. Tomorrow, Romano told her newfound allies, we show them that the future belongs not to those who dismiss the past, but to those who learn from it. In the secure workshop, humans and Nairathi made final adjustments to their hybrid weapons. The old and the new, the physical and the energetic, the primitive and the advanced, all coming together in perfect harmony, waiting for the moment to demonstrate that true progress comes not from abandoning history, but from building upon it. The final day of the exhibition dawned with an artificial sunrise over Helios Prime's atmosphere-controlled sky. The massive combat arena, carved into the planet's largest crater, hummed with energy as species from across the galaxy gathered to witness what the Vexari promised would be a decisive demonstration of superior technology. Commander Romano stood at her designated position, the modified M1 Garand held casually at her side. Beside her, Vizier Cole's crystalline form shimmered with subtle patterns of anticipation. They had chosen their moment carefully. The Vexaries' own hubris would be their undoing. Zixvar's voice boomed across the arena, his carapace flashing patterns of smug confidence. We begin with a simple demonstration of defensive capabilities. Each species will attempt to breach a standard Vexari shield array. Naturally, we've adjusted the power levels to give our less advanced participants a sporting chance. The condescending laughter that rippled through the Vexari audience died quickly when the first explosion rocked the stadium. Warning sirens blared as multiple vessels dropped out of hyperspace directly above the arena. Vexari warships, but not the ones assigned to the exhibition. This is High Commander Nexvar. A new voice thundered through the command channels. We have confirmed reports of weapons development violations. This gathering is now under military jurisdiction. All participants will submit to immediate inspection and technological impounding. Romano's earpiece crackled with a secure transmission from Dr. Petal back on Earth. Commander, we're detecting massive energy signatures. They're charging weapons. So much for the diplomatic approach, Romano muttered, then raised her voice to address the now panicking crowd. All allied species, execute emergency protocol Shadow. This is not a drill. Years of military training paid off as chaos erupted. While the Vexari warships began deploying their energy weapons, Romano's hybrid rifle came up smoothly to her shoulder. Her first shot struck the nearest Vexari shield generator, not with the expected ping of a deflected projectile, but with a resonating boom that rippled through the quantum field. The effect was instantaneous. The supposedly impenetrable energy barrier flickered and collapsed, its quantum matrix shredded by the combination of physical impact, quantum tunneling, and Nairathi resonance technology. The Vexari troops behind it stood exposed, their carapaces flashing patterns of shock and disbelief. Impossible. Zixvar's voice cracked with rage. That primitive weapon can't. His words cut off as Vizier Cole activated their own hybrid weapon, a crystalline staff that pulsed with both resonance energy and quantum fields. The blast caught a squad of Vexari enforcers, their personal shields failing as spectacularly as the larger barrier had. The battle evolved rapidly. Throughout the arena, previously subjugated species revealed hidden weapons, each incorporating elements of the human Nairathi hybridization. What the Vexari had dismissed as a simple military exhibition had become the first strike of a coordinated rebellion. All units, fall back to secondary positions, Romano ordered, leading a group of allies toward the emergency bunkers. Her rifle spoke again and again, each shot bringing down another energy shield, each impact proving that the combination of old and new technology was more than a match for the Vexari's supposedly superior weapons. In orbit, the situation was equally chaotic. The Vexari warships found their energy weapons significantly less effective than expected. The Allied species ships, hastily retrofitted with hybrid defense systems, absorbed or deflected attacks that should have vaporized them instantly. "Commander," Vizar Kol called out, their crystalline form glowing with battle energy, "the Vexari are attempting to activate their planetary defense grid." Romano smiled grimly. "Exactly as we predicted. Dr. Patel, you're up." Across Helios Prime, hidden quantum resonance transmitters activated. The technology was simple by Vexari standards, so simple they hadn't bothered to scan for it. But combined with the planetary crystals the Nyrathi had seeded months ago, it created a web of disrupting energy that turned the Vexari's own defense grid against them. The battle raged for hours, but the outcome was never really in doubt. The Vexari, for all their advanced technology, had no defense against weapons that operated outside their narrow definition of progress. Their shields failed, their energy weapons were absorbed or reflected, and their strategies fell apart in the face of unpredictable hybrid attacks. As the dust settled, Romano stood in the command center they'd captured, watching Zixspor being led in under guard. The once proud Vexari leader's carapace now pulsed with subdued patterns of defeat and confusion. "How?" he demanded. "How did primitive projectile weapons defy our superior technology?" Romano laid her rifle on the table between them. "Because true advancement isn't about abandoning the past. It's about learning from it. Every technology, every approach, has value if you're willing to see it. Your people became so convinced of your superiority that you forgot the most important lesson of all. There's always more to learn." The victory at Helios Prime would later be recognized as the turning point, but Romano knew the real war was just beginning. The Vexari Empire was vast, and this was only one planet. Yet as she looked at her allies, humans, Nyrathi, and a dozen other species working together, combining their technologies and knowledge in ways never before imagined, she knew they would prevail. Sometimes the oldest weapons proved the deadliest, not because of their original design, but because of what they could become when combined with the wisdom of ages and the innovation of the present. 6 months after the Battle of Helios Prime, Commander Romano stood in the newly constructed Chamber of Unity on neutral ground, a space station orbiting a binary star system. The chamber's walls displayed weapons from countless civilizations, from the most ancient to the most advanced. Her M1 Garand held a place of honor among them, not as a relic, but as a symbol of transformation. The fall of the Vexari Empire hadn't come through a prolonged war as many had expected. Instead, their defeat at Helios Prime had triggered a cascade of revelations throughout their territory. Countless subjugated species, inspired by the human Nyrathi alliance, had risen up with their own hybrid technologies, each combining their traditional methods with modern innovations. "The Council is ready to begin, Commander," announced Vizar Kol, now serving as the head of the newly formed Galactic Technology Exchange. Their crystalline form had grown more complex, incorporating subtle traces of various allied technologies while maintaining its fundamental nature, a living example of their philosophy. The council chamber filled with representatives from across the galaxy. Where the Vexari had once enforced uniformity, now diversity flourished. Each species brought their unique approaches to technology, warfare, and peace. Former enemies sat together, sharing insights and innovations. Dr. Patel, appearing via quantum hologram from Earth, began his presentation on the principles that had led to their victory. The key was never about creating something entirely new, he explained, displaying diagrams of various hybrid technologies. It was about understanding that every stage of technological development has value. The Vexari's greatest mistake was believing that advancement only moved in one direction. Around the chamber, heads nodded in agreement. A former Vexari scientist, their carapace now modified to show genuine rather than artificial emotions, rose to speak. "Our civilization lost its way when we began to equate complexity with superiority. We forgot that elegance often lies in simplicity, and that true innovation comes from unexpected combinations." The next speaker was Ixel Ren, the Nyrathi scientist who had helped perfect the resonance quantum hybrid technology. Their crystalline form projected images of new developments, medical technologies combining ancient herbal knowledge with quantum healing, transportation systems merging primitive mechanical principles with advanced energy manipulation. The revolution wasn't just about weapons, Ixel Ren noted. It was about recognizing that progress isn't linear. Every civilization's path is valid, and when we share our knowledge freely, we all benefit. Romano took her turn at the podium, her hand resting on the familiar wooden stock of her rifle. A year ago, this weapon was mocked as a primitive antique. Today, it stands as a reminder that innovation doesn't mean abandoning our foundations. It means building upon them. The Vexari Empire fell not because our weapons were stronger, but because our philosophy was better. The chamber erupted in approving sounds from dozens of species. Even the remaining Vexari representatives, now part of a reformed government, signaled their agreement with subtle patterns of light. But our work is just beginning, Romano continued. We've created something unprecedented. A coalition where every technology, every approach, every history has value. Our challenge now is to maintain this balance, to remember the lessons we've learned. The final act of the Council was to establish the Technological Heritage Protection Act, ensuring that no civilization's traditional methods would ever again be dismissed as primitive or worthless. Research centers were established throughout the galaxy, dedicated to exploring combinations of technologies that would have once been considered impossible or illogical. Later, in her private quarters aboard the station, Romano cleaned her rifle one last time before its installation in the permanent exhibition. The wood still bore the scars of centuries, now joined by marks from its service in humanity's greatest victory. She traced the old inscription, Ad astra per aspera. To the stars through hardship, Vizar Cole translated, entering the room. Though perhaps we should add, and through wisdom. Romano smiled, carefully placing the rifle in its display case. The hardest wisdom to learn is often the simplest. That progress doesn't mean forgetting where we came from, but understanding how to bring the best of our past into the future. Through the station's viewport, they watched ships from dozens of civilizations moving through space, each design reflecting its creator's unique journey from past to present. Some used advanced energy drives, others relied on modified versions of ancient propulsion theories. All of them worked together in an elegant dance of diversity. The weapon that had been mocked now stood as a testament to a fundamental truth. True advancement comes not from dismissing the old, but from understanding it, building upon it, and combining it with the new in ways that honor both innovation and tradition. As Romano prepared to return to Earth, she took one last look at the rifle that had changed the galaxy. It had never been about the weapon itself, but about what it represented, the unbreakable human spirit of innovation, the power of respecting history while embracing the future, and the strength that comes from bringing different worlds together. The stars beckoned, brighter than ever, promising not an end to their journey, but a new beginning, one where every path to the future was valid, and where the wisdom of ages combined with the innovation of the present to create something greater than either could achieve alone. End.